If I'm famous, that's news to me, but I do appreciate that. I have certainly been around the industry for a long time. So you said it. I'm actually traveling in Rhode Island right now. I got my start in the dental industry in Rhode Island, sometimes with some insurance companies, and I've worked for a number of them, and they're not all like this, but sometimes the dentist gets forgotten as part of the deal, and they're just like, we have to contract, we have to get the lowest rates we can. And then dentists come in and they say, well, we want better rates. And the insurance company says, well, why? And there's just this like,
You spend 4 years, you go to dental school, you get educated on essentially everything that you're doing in a practice. And then when it comes to the insurance companies, like for example, I recommended a crown on a patient, the insurance company comes back and says, well, this patient, we could have just done a filling. Why did we do a crown? And then it almost makes you feel like, then I got my education at a school where they told me this is what I need to do. And you're using your education in a ways to kind of get to the conclusion of why it's better for the patient. I almost feel like, what is your thought process on that? Because I feel like it almost makes some sort of conflict between the doctor, the insurance company.
I can speak from, personal experience for some of the companies I've worked for. A lot of times they will just set rates for a particular rating area. So it may be like the number of counties or certain zip codes. And they'll just say, these are the rates for all the dentists in this area, right? Unless you're a specialist, like I said, you may have the ability to negotiate a bit more because maybe you're the only one at 30 miles providing a service and they need you. So they will evaluate those areas. They may periodically go back and look at what rates are and do sort of like an across the board increase. But a lot of the companies out there, they try to keep everybody in the same place in that certain area. You don't necessarily have to have a person sitting in your chair to diagnose most of what they need done if you have an x-ray in front of you, right? I mean, you can do this remotely. There are a number of teledentistry companies out there. I've worked with some of them in the past, right? And they can do secondary looks. They can do, quality checks and all that. So, I mean, the technology's coming. It's just not every insurance company has fully embraced it yet. A lot of analysis. We make dental really complex, like we've talked about in this conversation, but it's important. It's an important, obviously, benefit to have for your employees and members. So I hope we get there. I don't hear a lot about people being afraid of losing their job because of that. I think you just shift the human responsibilities to other more human touch type things. When you look at, I know you didn't ask me this, but when you look at a dentist office itself, I think one of the most important things for me as a patient going in is like the front desk staff. If they're warm and welcoming and nice, like it just sort of puts you at ease going into your appointment.
All right, everyone. Welcome back to Dentman Podcast. Man, I'm excited for this one. We got Mr. Michael Cembrola. Did I do it right, Mr. Michael?
Nailed it. Yeah.
Man, this last names are hard, man.
That's you got 100% on that one. A+.
A+. I'm like, I tell everybody, my last name is Aegis. Just think about the O and the G, the original gangster. Oh,
yeah, I like that. Yeah.
So, Michael, thank you so much. I know you're traveling. Michael is in his hometown of Rhode Island. Love it. And he is with us. He's going to give us a ton of information about the dental industry. The goal with Dentman Podcast is to empower the dentists and just kind of figure out the ways how we can help one another. So, Michael, please, I know you're pretty famous in our industry, but I'll let you introduce yourself.
Thank you for that. If I'm famous, that's news to me, but I do appreciate that. I have certainly been around the industry for a long time. So you said it. I'm actually traveling in Rhode Island right now. I got my start in the dental industry in Rhode Island. If I'm famous, that's news to me, but I do appreciate that. I have certainly been around the industry for a long time. So you said it. I'm actually traveling in Rhode Island right now. I got my start in the dental industry in Rhode Island. If I'm famous, that's news to me, but I do appreciate that. I have certainly been around the industry for a long time. So you said it. I'm actually traveling in Rhode Island right now. I got my start in the dental industry in Rhode Island. My first job out of college was working for Delta Dental of Rhode Island back in 2003.
What?
Yeah, that's what I said, 2003. I've kind of touched the dental industry ever since. So I've worked for multiple Delta Dental member companies all around this country, starting small as like a sales rep to leading national teams, kind of done everything. And then I've worked in the medical space for a long time too, for a number of health plans. I've worked on the delivery side of the business, running revenue for a mobile dentistry company. And then actually now I'm officially the CRO of a behavioral health startup which is really cool too. And we work with people that don't respond to drugs and other kinds of therapy. And so that's been a really interesting thing. But I always kind of have my hands in dental at all times. And so there's definitely crossover with behavioral health and dental too. So yeah, just kind of long history there. Again, like both sides of the business, a lot of insurance, angle for me, and worked with a lot of dentists and different companies across this country. And you get sucked into dental, you can't get out. You're in it now.
What's the reason for that, Michael?
I don't know.
Is it the dentists?
I
Are
don't.
they lovely, easy to work with?
Great question. For me, more of my career has been on the insurance side, working for the insurance companies. And then I said a little bit of, on the mobile dentistry side, working for the delivery side. But yeah, I've worked with a ton of dentists. A lot of it's like employer groups and them providing dental benefits, which I think are amazingly meaningful. And a lot of people really take them for granted, and they're just like so important to your overall health and well-being. And so I don't know, it keeps coming back. It's funny, I don't particularly love going to the dentist myself, but I go, and every dentist I go to, I ask him a whole bunch of questions. I probably annoy them, but no, it's great. I don't know, Masood. I'm in it. I'm in it for
You're
life.
just stuck with them. Yeah, you're married to them.
That's it.
That's it.
It took me back to that moment of that movie. It says every time I tried to get out, that sucked me right back in.
That's right.
Scarface. Every time.
That's it. I hear the drill every time I'm trying to leave. It's just it.
No, dentist. Honestly, I was telling Masood, the one thing that, beside the dental side of things, practicing as a practicing dentist, I definitely enjoyed the day-to-day challenges that comes with it. But the one thing that I loved since we started the Dentman and the process of meeting this lovely gentleman, Mr. Masood, and I always tell him, the past 7-8 months, my life has changed so much to an extent that I couldn't even imagine. But like the one thing that I love that me and him, we kind of doing is like we're meeting people along the way that is creating paths that I could never imagine. And that's what I love about the dental industry. People are so open, especially like people that are part of the industry partners. They're just so open to conversation. And that's what I love about the dentistry the most, about everything else to the side of it. I love the people that are in it because I feel like each person wants to bring some sort of value to the table for the next. And I love that so much about how things are. But Mr. Michael, the one thing I wanted to ask you, so I had Angela on a podcast and she deals with the insurance companies and all that. The one thing that she mentioned, and I think that's probably, you will like this. She said that I want the PPOs work for the dentist and not the dentist work for the PPO. The one thing I wanted to ask you, how can dentists take a control over the insurance contract and the fees?
Yeah.
What are some of the approaches on that? Because I think the biggest struggle these days are just the insurance. You put the claim in, it gets denied. You do this, it gets denied. And it seems like it's a battle between the insurance and the dentist. So what are some of your recommendations for the dentist to kind of take a control over that and say, hey, like we got to take control over what we do? So what is your kind of recommendation and thought process on that?
I think that's a great question. So the insurance companies would not exist without you guys, right? Like you're a practicing dentist. If there's no network of dentists, they have nothing to sell to anybody, right? So you're an important component to what they do. However, at the same time, they're all competing against each other. And a lot of what they're doing is trying to compete on fees. So they're trying to contract you as a dentist in their network at the lowest possible rates they can so that they can go and sell that to an employer group and say, we have this contracted network. And by the way, we pay them a lot less from our insurance company than these 5 other insurance companies. So you should come work with us because it's going to cost you less, right? And so that's kind of like, that's the whole sort of crux of the insurance scenario there. I think what happens sometimes with some insurance companies, and I've worked for a number of them, and they're not all like this, but sometimes the dentist gets forgotten as part of the deal. And they're just like, we have to contract, we have to get the lowest rates we can. And then dentists come in and they say, well, we want better rates. And the insurance company says, well, why? And there's just this like back and forth. So I think from really the dentist perspective, you guys, really hold the cards. I mean, you're providing the care. The patients live in your area. You don't fly typically you don't fly across the country to go get dental care, right? Unless you had something really crazy specialty, right? You're going to go get your cleaning, a mile from your house, and you get your filling there. So I think the dentists hold more power than the insurance companies lead them to believe. And I've worked with a lot of dentists over the years and kind of helped them with their contract negotiations. But you got to be smart about it when you're a dentist too, right? You have to come in and you have to look at, okay, where are my fees? Where are my fees with all the different carriers that I accept? What am I willing to accept with this carrier? How much membership do I have from this carrier, right? Are they a big player in this area? Did they just sell a big group that's going to give me a lot more access? Like, these are really important things. And then you got to think about, like, when's the last time you negotiated the fees with this carrier, right? Like, what are the market dynamics? So there are a lot of things. Like, I've had a number of people dentists approach me over the years and say, can you help me negotiate fees? And then, you dig in and they negotiated fees 6 months ago, and you go through the insurance company, they say, sorry, we just gave you an increase. Like, what, we can't do that. We have a number of other dentists to work with. So it's from the dentist perspective, you hold more cards than you think. You have to be smart about it. You kind of, in my opinion, you have to build a business case when you're going to work with an insurance company and say, this is the value I bring in this area to you, and this is why you should really pay me what I'm worth, right? And then you asked about claims. I mean, different insurance companies handle claims in different ways. A lot of them have automated systems. Like, there are some insurance companies, 90% of the claims fly through without really an issue. Others are a lot more manual. So that's really a company by company scenario. And some are harder on certain things than others. And, they have peer review and second opinions and all these things. It really depends on the company, but I kind of see it like all across the board when you're looking at like that. To me, when the insurance companies and the doctors partner up, that's a great relationship, because at the end of the day, we all have the same goal, which is to serve the patient that's in your chair. And like, sometimes I think that gets forgotten. Like, it becomes, and I'm not talking from a dentist perspective, from an insurance company perspective, it becomes about numbers and membership. And like, sometimes you forget that there's someone who's sitting in your chair that may be scared to be sitting in the chair, and they just want their claim to go through. They want the insurance company to pay for it and like be on with their day. So I think there's a lot of moving parts to your question.
No, absolutely. And I think the one thing that I talked with Angela about as well was the fact that, in my opinion at least, that the dental insurance is not a true dental insurance. I believe it's more of like a discounted card. What is your perspective on that? Do you think that they are a truly an insurance card, or do you think they're just like, hey, we're providing you with the service at a lower cost? What is your thought process on that?
There are a number of things when you look at that. So I think there are layers to that. If you are a patient that really needs 1 or 2 cleanings a year, you don't have a lot of cavities, you don't have a lot of major services, you may not even need dental insurance, right? You might just take it because your company offers it. However, if you have a lot of cavities, or you need a crown or an extraction or whatever, if you're on a PPO plan, it's going to pay for a large chunk of what you would have paid out of pocket. So it can really be a benefit, and it could be worth in that scenario. It's akin to medical insurance, right? You buy it because if you have to go to the hospital, great. You're not going to pay 50 grand out of pocket, but you may not use it for 20 years. So I kind of view it that way. But within insurance itself, there are different scenarios. So you have your kind of traditional PPO plans that pay more of like a copay or a co-insurance for every service when you're the member. But then you have your DHMO plans that are more of like a set fee for each service. And there are benefits to those too. So the kind of interesting thing is, a lot of those plans, people get on them because they don't need a lot of insurance or a lot of work to be done. But then some of them cover like ortho at an amazing place. And you're like, it makes more sense to jump on that than to go on your PPO plan. So in a way, you have to be a little bit of a savvy customer. And you have to look at when you're a person buying insurance, either through an employer or on your own, you kind of got to look at what you think your needs might be for that year. And so, yeah, I mean, if you're not getting a lot of services, I totally agree. It could be viewed like maybe this is more of a discount. But if you need 2 crowns, or you need, something more major, you need a root canal, you're going to say like, okay, well, I got probably more than my money's worth this year on the plan. So it's kind of like a year over year decision in my mind.
Michael, You talked about numbers and you mentioned that like these insurance companies really forget about the other end of the story, which is the patients. There are people having pain, there are people that want to get things done. It usually just become numbers to them. That's how the world works, unfortunately. What are the numbers? They say that insurance companies are in the business of declining claims. But what are the numbers like? Like what percentage of the claims on average go declined and what percentage of them like they accept?
So, I can't speak for every insurance company, and a lot of that is probably proprietary for them. I would say, sort of anecdotally, most insurance companies are going to let sort of low dollar claims flow through without a lot of an issue. But if you need a crown, you need an extraction, you need a root canal, you need a implant, those are the things they're really going to scrutinize. And that's where, as dentists, it may be more challenging as you're submitting those things to have the appropriate paperwork. You may think that the claim is going to go through, and the insurance company comes back after the fact and denies it. Then you, as the dentist, look like the bad guy, even though you're just trying to do right by the patient. So I don't have a great answer for you as far as like percentage of claims, but I would say I know for a fact there are several insurance companies that 80 to 90% of the claims, mostly that preventive stuff, is like kind of flying right through the system. A lot of times at one insurance company I was working at, we would say like your claim is basically paid while you're still sitting in the chair, right? So even if you needed a quick prior auth, it was usually for something not that complex. It could be done really fast, and then dentists could do what they needed to do, and they're on their way. I think that's a lot of frustration, though, that I've heard over the years from patients is like, I go to the dentist says I need these things, and then my insurance company won't cover it for me, right? And it goes back to that. It's not always the insurance company's fault, but they do scrutinize those higher dollar claims because, if you're on a fully insured plan, it's coming off the insurance company's taking the risk. I will also say a lot of times, I know you didn't exactly ask me this question, but it's sort of adjacent here. Someone will say, well, my dental plan only covers $1,000 out of pocket max, and I need a crown. It's going to cost me $1,800. And why am I paying for this insurance? Well, that's your employer group's decision, not the insurance company, to cover that maximum. So that happens a lot too, and that makes the insurance company look like the bad guy when really maybe it's just the plan that was purchased. So again, people think dental is from outside the industry is really simple and straightforward, but it's really, really complex. And there are a lot of players, the big ones being the dentist, the insurance company, the employer group, and then obviously the patient. So it's a complex world.
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
It's so interesting you bring this point up, Mr. Michael, because I always have these questions in mind. Like you go to dental school, you spend 4 years, you go to dental school, you get educated on essentially everything that you're doing in a practice. And then when it comes to the insurance companies, like for example, I recommended a crown on a patient, the insurance company comes back and says, well, this patient, we could have just done a filling. Why did we do a crown? And then it almost makes you feel like, then I got my education at a school where they told me this is what I need to do. And you're using your education in a ways to kind of get to the conclusion of why it's better for the patient. I almost feel like, what is your thought process on that? Because I feel like it almost makes some sort of conflict between the doctor, the insurance company, and sometimes it even makes you doubt yourself as a doctor to be like, then what am I, if I'm putting this, if I have all these reasons and I'm giving it to you and you're kind of declining it and you're saying, well, we're just denying it just to deny it, then what is really truly the role of the dentist in all of that? Because we are really just following what we are being taught of and what we know. So why do you think the insurance companies are just saying, hey, like even though that you're saying it needs a crown, but in reality we think it doesn't? Why do you think? Don't you think that creates that conflict between the doctor and the insurance company? And what are some of the ways that can get fixed, or is that a way that is ever going to get fixed?
I love the question, and I feel for you. Like, really, if I put myself in your shoes and I'm a dentist and I went to all this schooling, I got a great education, I practice, and I say this patient needs a crown, and then the insurance company says, no, you don't. And I'm sitting here, I'm the one in their mouth, right? And like you're telling me no. I would say from an insurance company standpoint, again, it comes like we talked about a minute ago, it comes down to the dollars, right? So they're saying if you can get, if you can do a 2-surface filling in there instead of the crown, we should just do that because it costs less, right? But sometimes if you're the patient in the chair, you're saying, Dr. Owji, like, hey, Michael, you need, this is a big filling. It's going to be 50% of your tooth. I can't fill 50% of your tooth. You need a crown, or you're going to need a crown a year from now. So let's just do the crown now. It's going to ultimately cost you less if you do it that way, right? That's when it becomes frustrating. So I think the insurance companies they do review. A lot of them employ a number of dentists on staff that review these claims. They're not just doing that though. They're also looking at claims for like fraudulent behavior. Like I've seen the FBI called in, the guys in the blue jackets with the yellow FBI in the back running into the dentist's office. I've seen this stuff happen in real life, right? Because people are submitting claims that they shouldn't. So they sort of have this they view any of the high dollar stuff very.
Was that in a
So
movie
that's gonna
or
be
was it like a real case?
Real deal, man. I like
Wow.
one of the companies I worked at. We had a dentist that was putting a bunch of fraudulent claims in and literally sent in the FBI to the office. Yeah, real deal.
Yeah.
I think there are a couple things going on in the industry. There are some AI companies out there that are doing some analysis here and really trying to bring a bit of an objective view. I think, Dr. Owji, you would think this. You may have a colleague, and you look at the same tooth and you may have a different analysis. So some of it's just like a difference of opinion. But to me, ultimately, it's about the dollars, and they're trying to usually do the lower cost thing. That's not the case for every insurance company. I know a number of dentists that work there that are like, okay, this is the right treatment, even though it costs more. But I think historically, that's kind of what you're dealing with, and that's the frustration that you're sharing there.
So to rephrase that, Michael, I mean, I think the reason that that's happening is because the goals are not aligned. Like Dr. Owji, when he sees a patient, he wants to do quality work. He wants to offer the patient what's going to work out for him, both in the short term and also long term. But the insurance companies, they have numbers that they have to hit. They have quarterly goals that they have to hit in terms of revenue and in terms of everything else. And it's not just one case that they're dealing with, it's probably thousands. That they have to go through and see which one is more economy for the patient and it still gets the job done. But I think the doctor wants the quality work, they just want the economy. So does that make sense? Like I think the goals, they're just looking for what's the cheapest way to get this patient off and going, but the doctor is basically looking for what's going to be great for this patient.
So I wouldn't say like every insurance company approaches that way. And I would also say, the last 5 years of my career in dental compared to the first, 15, there's definitely been a shift there, and the insurance companies are like looking at things differently. But by and large, I don't think you're incorrect. And I think they are trying to do, what is most cost effective. But they are realizing that sometimes it makes more sense to do the more comprehensive service now, right? To prevent having to go back and do it in the future. So it's hard to categorize because every company is a little bit different. And I do think it's getting better, but I agree. I mean, I said this earlier in the podcast. I think a lot of times the patient is forgotten in this deal. And I've seen cases of the opposite for sure. I've sat on review panels, right, where you look at appeals and grievances, and the insurance company, in my opinion, makes the right decision. But I've seen the other side too. It's a business at the end of the day, and there's a lot of money in this business, and you do have goals and targets, and
for sure.
So
Michael, the one thing I wanted to ask you was that, so from a perspective of a dentist, now we talked about the patient, from a perspective of a dentist, how can a dentist approach the insurance company and really negotiate those rates with the confidence to say, hey, I essentially want more money. So what is some of the things that you have seen that a dentist walk into the room and said, hey, like this is what I want, or I'm just going to walk out? Where that confidence needs to come from for the dentist to do that?
Yeah, I think there are a number of things there. You need to sort of build your business case why you need an increase. To just go and say, I need an increase is not going to get you very far. But if you go look at, I'm trading X amount of patients from your company, right? You may have 1,000 patients from one particular company, and I haven't had an increase in 5 years. And, you will know when a big group gets sold in your area, because a lot of people are going to show up with that new insurance card, right? And so you as a dentist, Dr. Owji, you know what your patient mix is. You know how many patients you're seeing from each insurance company. And if you have a lot from one, I mean, that to me, that's the company you go to and say, hey, 75% of my practice is your patients. And this other carrier is paying me, 20% more than you are on the 25% of patients I have. Basically making almost the same amount of income from those patients, and I have way more of you. And so you don't need to do that in a threatening way, but to me, you put together a case. So you say, when's the last time I had an increase? How do my rates compare to the other carriers? How much of this carrier's business do I have? What big companies have been sold recently, right? That I know more business is going to come my way. How far am I from other dentists in the area? Do I do something better than everyone else? Like, am I the best at crowns in the area, right? And I'm doing more crowns than everyone because I know how to do them. And the doctors down the road send me the complex cases because they know I can handle them, right? So you kind of package all those things. And then you need to find the right people to approach at the insurance company to plead that case. If you, in a lot of cases, no offense to any of the provider network reps out here, but if you go to your provider network rep, they're told to basically say, well, you had an increase a year ago. We don't evaluate increases for every, except for every 24 months or more. And you say, well, yeah, you just sold this 10,000 life group down the street and I have 500 new patients calling me, like, let's work something out here. So, but the network stuff gets complex too. So I don't know how deep you want to go there, but
man, it's crazy when you think about dentistry and how complex this insurance stuff makes it. Man, good on my friends, Dr. Bowman out in Utah. He's like, hell with this insurance. He went fee for service. I'm good on him.
There's a lot. I will say too, like if you're a specialist, you typically have a bit more negotiating power because there's just not as many specialists. Or if you're in a more rural type area, you can sometimes negotiate more. What you're going to hear from a lot of the insurance companies is these are our rates for this zip code, right? Or this service area. And every dentist here gets these rates. Well, sometimes that's true. Sometimes that's not true. And so you put together a good case. You work with someone that can help you get in there and do that. And there are ways to fairly appropriately negotiate better fees for yourself, which you probably deserve because a lot of these companies probably have not given you an increase for several years. So,
man, this stuff sounds like a mafia stuff.
Yeah, it's not that bad. It's just the frontline people you work with are basically they are given the playbook and this is what you can do and when you can do it, and you need to be creative and build that business case why you deserve more. And a lot of dentists deserve more in many areas. Some don't. Some are already, sitting pretty, but others could use some help.
You talked about something that is very interesting for me, is that I want to know, you kind of have the behind the scene because I know you have worked for the insurance company. So I want to get the behind the scenes. So like, how do payers view dentists or the set fees and the performances? Like, how does that, from your perspective, how is that kind of getting evaluated from a perspective of the payers?
Okay. There are a number of different ways. I can speak from, personal experience for some of the companies I've worked for. A lot of times they will just set rates for a particular rating area. So it may be like the number of counties or certain zip codes. And they'll just say, these are the rates for all the dentists in this area, right? Unless you're a specialist, like I said, you may have the ability to negotiate a bit more because maybe you're the only one at 30 miles providing a service and they need you. So they will evaluate those areas. They may periodically go back and look at what rates are and do sort of like an across the board increase. But a lot of the companies out there, they try to keep everybody in the same place in that certain area. Now there are other companies that don't do that. And they're going to negotiate if you get you have a bigger practice, or maybe they're bringing on a bunch of membership in your particular town within that county or that rating area, work with you there. So it depends on the carrier. Then there are also other scenarios where carriers lease networks from other places. You may be a big insurance company, but you may not have a great national network in the Southwest. So you may lease a network from another company there, right? And say that's your network, but you're really sort of borrowing it. And then some companies stack those networks on top of each other and create this like big national network. So you as a dentist may be accepting a certain carrier that you don't know you're accepting. You didn't sign up with them directly, right? Because you're getting them through one of these leased arrangements. So that makes it really complicated too. And that makes it hard for the patient because they may call in and say, hey, do you accept carrier X? And you're going like, no. but then, your team looks it up and you're on their network because you're part of this leased agreement. So it's really across the board. But typically, back where I started, they look at fees, right, in a certain geographic area. Like if you're in Texas, you're going to have a different fee schedule than in New York City, which is going to be different than, central Wyoming. It's based on the areas. And then I think I heard you say something about quality. Different carriers look at quality different ways. So there are some carriers that employ or buy into sort of third-party evaluation services that have things for dentists, and they'll do star ratings and they'll put that on their website. And those companies evaluate on a number of metrics. Like they'll look at norms in a certain area and they'll say, how many fillings does this doctor perform? How many times do they fail? How many, and they have metrics that they create for a certain area. And then you as a dentist, you get that score, and you may agree with it or not agree with it, but there is some of that going on in the dental space right now. I think that needs to get better. There are different ways to do that, but it's a step in the right direction, right? Because a lot of patients, you move to a new area, you're like, I want a great dentist. Oh, there's a 5-star rating scale. I don't want to go to the 2-star guy. I want the 5-star guy or whatever. So that I think is going to evolve a bit more. And I think it's fairly objective. Like they aggregate claims from a number of carriers and come up with these scores. And there are some companies that do this very well, but I don't see that right now is driving what you're being reimbursed at, right? Which is where we really need to get. You should be reimbursed for the value of care that you're providing. And if your crowns never fail, then you should get paid more for that crown than the dentist down the street who has to redo that crown every 3 years. So that's where this is where we are. That's where we need to go.
So, Michael, Milad asked you about the behind the scenes in terms of people. I'm going to ask you the same question, but in terms of systems and the softwares that are being used. And basically, the technology that this whole insurance business is built upon. So how does that work? Like, how do the algorithms work, and how often do they tell it to decline a claim? Like, what kind of variables they're looking for to decline something? How can people make sure that, it's at the end of the day, it's a software. It's not a human analyzing it. You have to go by its rules. You have to go by its algorithms to make sure that basically, it is seeing it the way that you're trying to show it. I don't know if that makes sense. But
it makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. So that's basically my question. I just don't know how to word
No,
it,
I
but
got you.
you
No,
understand the sense of it.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So I think you're giving the dental industry more credit than they have right now, right? Because I don't think a lot of the systems are as sophisticated as we would all hope they are. There is hope there. I think there are some companies that are working really hard on dental AI and reviewing claims, right, without a person looking at them. But I know for a fact that for a number of claims, they still need an actual person to look at them, right? And so some of that is fact checking the AI, right? Everything you put into ChatGPT, you don't always believe it, right? You need to check some of that stuff, right? You need to change what it says before you send that out somewhere sometimes, right? So that's happening. I think a lot of insurance companies have pieced together different, behind the scenes, they piece together different things. The interesting thing about insurance companies like claim systems, a lot of them are not built for dental. They're built for medical plans, and they've been retrofitted to fit dental plans, right? So you guys know this, right? I'm sure you've experienced some of that. So I think a lot of it is still manual. There, like we talked about earlier, a number of claims like just fly through because they are more preventive type stuff. Like a cleaning, you don't need someone to look at an x-ray to say you needed to provide a cleaning, right? There's just a number of things that go through like that. I think I'm seeing people employ the AI technology a bit more and potentially cutting down on the number of like actual physical dentists they need to do that like secondary review. But I don't think we are at a point where we can get away from that. Like it's just not perfect yet. So I think insurance companies are evolving. You'll probably see a lot of them using that technology and piloting that technology and testing that. But right now we're in the phase where they're going to run it through AI, and they're also going to run it through their regular human systems and say, like, do we come to the same place on this? So I think that's what's happening now. I mean, when you look at it, Dr. Oji, you can say this. I mean, you don't necessarily have to have a person sitting in your chair to diagnose most of what they need done if you have an x-ray in front of you, right? I mean, you can do this remotely. There are a number of teledentistry companies out there. I've worked with some of them in the past, right? And they can do secondary looks, they can do, quality checks and all that. So I mean, the technology's coming. It's just not every insurance company has fully embraced it yet. So I think, again, you're giving them more credit than they have at the moment. But to their credit, I think they're all trying to get there. And I think they will. It's just, probably a couple of years away.
Yeah, and
Dental
you're
in
absolutely. Yeah, go ahead, Doc.
No, I was gonna be like the dental industry in the US is like a third world country.
It's very embarrassing when you see no offense, doctor, but when you see a lot of spaces, like I'm a software developer and I come from a world
Yeah.
where, everything is techie, everything is up to date, 21st century, and a lot of areas you see in the dental world that you're like, what the heck, man? Like, why are they doing it this way? Much better technology right now. We're not living in the 1900s anymore.
I can say, like, I don't want to feel the whole time here that I'm ragging on insurance companies, because they do some things well. There are some insurance companies I know intently that they are really trying to like propel into the future, but it's hard. Like the claim systems, like a lot of things are not built specifically for dentals. They're trying to piece together these things. And there are companies that have big goals and lots of intense, big money IT projects that they're spending dollars on to try to like get there. But it's like there's a kind of a typical thing in the dental industry, right? Where you say dental is 10 years behind medical. It always is. Like, we had medicine a decade ago, and now, in the last couple years, we're really getting teledentistry, and no one's really using it right now. So it's like that's just one example of it just takes more time to get here. And dental is a very important benefit, right? It's a number 2 benefit. Put it on my insurance hat, selling to employer groups, large and small, is a very important benefit. But like medical is here, and then dental's here, and then vision, and then everything else. So it's 2, but there's a big gap between 1 and 2, and most of that is a financial gap, right? So that's where we are as an industry, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Actually introduces a lot of opportunities, because the good thing, specifically like Milad mentioned this, everyone is open to entrepreneurship and to new ideas and, exploring new ways to do things in dentistry. And I mean, I'm not too sure why it's 10 years behind the medical, because I don't think people in medical are so much like this, but I'm sure it'll probably catch up. I mean, the world of dentistry is changing. Everyone's
Yeah.
seeing that.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. There have been some good enhancements over the last couple of years. It just, for whatever reason, it takes a little bit longer in dentistry. There's an ongoing joke when you look at like dental benefit plan designs, right? That you look at, and it's been 100, 80, 50 for the last 50 years. Like the breakout of the categories has always been the same. And I can say, for working a number of dental insurance companies, we try to be creative and shift things around, but like that's the basic benefit design. At the end of the day, there are only so many things you can really do in dentistry, right? Even though the technology gets better, it's just like, okay, great. We have this like finite set of things we can do. Now let's bring the technology in a little bit more here. So,
hey,
but
Michael,
we're all
so
still in it, man. We got to get the hooks in us.
I know, like you got smart guys like Masood that come around and just try to build some crazy stuff.
Yeah.
That's what it
Well,
took.
at
It
least
took
I
for Masood
tried.
to come in and change things.
I love it.
Well, at least I tried.
Yeah. Hey, Mr. Michael, the one thing that you mentioned that I wanted to ask you is about the employers. How does the employers are approaching the dental benefit these days? Because that's a big factor too. So what are some of the components in that when it comes to them?
Yeah. So like I was saying a minute ago, dental benefits are, they're number 2 on the importance list.
Mm-hmm.
But the medical it's a lot more dollars, right? At the end of the day, employers are really serious about dental. I would say, we've been talking about this in dental for a long time, the mouth body connection, whole person health. There are a lot of conditions that manifest in the mouth or can be controlled through the mouth, diabetes issues. You can see like coronary artery disease, right? And a number of things. So employers are really realizing that there's a big benefit there to people getting their preventive care in dental, just like in medical. There are dollars too. There are a number of studies over the last, couple of decades about how much a patient with diabetes costs if they have uncontrolled like periodontal disease, right? So they get it. I think employers are very adamant about providing a high quality dental plan to their employees. They look at a number of factors, right? The 180/50 plan design we talked about, that's kind of, but there are a number of components, right? So you have, you have your plan design, you have what your deductibles and maximums are going to be. If you're a self-funded dental plan, meaning like you're just paying an admin fee to an insurance company to access their network and use their claim systems, and then you as the employer are paying all the claims, you are very interested in what those contracted fees are with the networks, because if you have better contracted rates with the dentist, you're going to spend less as an employer, right? If you're fully insured, the same kind of thing happens. Like if you're typically smaller groups are fully insured and larger are self-funded, the insurance company is looking at all that risk and they're taking into account what their contracted fees are and what they expect it's going to cost them. And then, they put that out. So the claims numbers are really important there, and prevention is a big thing. And I think employer groups, I've worked with some really, really big, like Fortune 50 companies, right? Like companies that have their stuff together and they can only get, 50% of their people, if they're lucky, to go get one cleaning a year. And so I think the employers that are making the decisions have the right mindset. Like dental's important. We have to do prevention. We have to control some of the things in the medical space, but they still have a hard time convincing their employees and all their members to go to the dentist. But it's a really hot topic. I mean, you have very high level consultants for the big groups all the way down to like your insurance broker that sells you your car insurance or your life insurance or your health insurance, on Main Street. That dental is always part of the package. So I've been in a number of those meetings over the years. There's a lot of scrutiny that goes into the dental plans and the costs. But again, it is a very important benefit. I would say, like, I can't think of most companies, even small companies at this point, that don't have dental as part of their package. Like they're going to cut other things or not use other things so they can bring in the dental component. So a lot of analysis. We make dental really complex, like we've talked about in this conversation, but it's important. It's an important, obviously, benefit to have for your employees and members.
Actually,
I'm not too sure. Go ahead,
no, go ahead,
Doctor.
Masood.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, I'm not too sure if you heard the news about the basically public dental coverage that the Canadian government started doing since start of May, like the start of this month. And
Okay.
they're basically giving free dental coverage for any kind of dental treatment or, any kind of recure appointments to anyone that's a Canadian resident and they filed their taxes for the year of 2024. That's for everyone.
That's
So
great.
how does that play? It's definitely good for people. But is it also good for, the dentists as well? And is it also beneficial for the government as well? Like, how does that play?
All right, that's a super complex question in the United States. So, with Medicaid, you can get basically all the dental care you need too, but not every dentist accepts Medicaid. You don't have to accept Medicaid. And the reason most don't is because the reimbursement rates are really low. You also have a number of dentists that accept Medicaid because they want to give back to the community and they may donate their time and go to free clinics and do all those things. That is more of a political question than I am probably qualified to answer on the Dentman podcast.
We'll get Donald Trump on.
We'll put Donald Trump on. I think that's awesome for Canada. I wish we would do more of that here. I think there is a lot of access, though, through different programs. But, when you get to some of those lower cost programs, you have fewer dentists that are willing to provide the service. So it becomes a bit more of like, how, as a patient, how do you get in? We probably need another 3-hour podcast to go.
It's okay, Mr. Michael. It won't last too long because they're about to become a 51st estate anyway.
Yeah, I mean, right? You got already decided at this point.
Yeah. Hey man, the audacity that guy has sitting in front of the Prime Minister of Canada, I was like, man, like if that's what it takes to become a president, sign me up. Well, Mr. Michael, you talk a lot about the mobile dentistry. What do you think that's going to look like, the future of it? I want to know as far as like the pop-up, the portable side of it, and all of that. Yeah. We actually I have a friend of mine that Masood met as well. His name is Fred Baba. He actually built and developed those mobile chairs through another company. So we were like actually talking with him. So what is that looking like, and what is the future of mobile dentistry look like?
I hope it's great. So I worked for a mobile dentistry company here as their chief revenue officer in the last couple of years. They did a mix of vehicles like RVs that were outfitted, right, to provide dentistry with ops in there, and they did pop up where you can go in a conference room. They actually, for some of their bigger employers, they would set up a full on dental clinic at their location. And then there are other companies out there that really focus on more of like the conference room piece. There's been a number of them. There were more of them before COVID, and there were some that I worked with, like in New York City, with one of my insurance companies, and it was starting to gain traction. What kind of happened is when we went into lockdown and people weren't coming to the office, it made it hard, right? It's making a bit of a resurgence now. I think there's a huge place for mobile dentistry. I think there is a lot of the companies now focus on employer groups, right? Because they have the money, they have the insurance plans, they can pay, for the people to come. But I think there's a big back to Canada for a second. There's a big untapped need with our Medicaid population too, where we can bring the mobile dentistry to them, and I'd love to see that happen where some of the insurance companies come in and start sponsoring some of these vehicles. Now they do this in some states. This is not a brand new thing that I'm saying. Like it's out there, but it's sporadic. Like a state may have a mobile vehicle that serves a couple counties, but it could become more of a widespread thing for that population, or also the Medicare population, like seniors. May be hard for them to get out to the dentist office, right? There's a big piece. Nursing homes. The companies have tried different variations of this in the past. I think the challenge, and from being in it, is staffing. So to get a dentist that is not just going to the same office every day, but they're moving to multiple locations, they're working maybe in different conditions every day. It's a challenge, I think, from that perspective. It's not one that can't be overcome, but it becomes to me more of a operational component than like just delivering dentistry. You're just organizing all these things. But I really, really hope that continues to grow, because I think it's just a way, again, to serve underserved populations. It's a way to get out into rural areas. There are big, we call them, as Dr. Owji, we call them dental deserts, right, in the country where there just aren't practitioners. To get out there, go out once a quarter, do a number of days, do a bunch of preventive care, have people come back and get their, more comprehensive stuff. And then, all right, great, we'll be back in 6 months. It's a thing that we should have more of in our country, right, with the resources we have. It's just, it really comes down to a financial component in my experience. But I love the model. Like the vehicles are so great. I've been on a number of them. I've sat in the chairs, right? Like they're comfortable. You feel like you're just in a smaller dentist office when you're in there. And so it's not a dodgy experience. You're not like in this 1970s RV that's got carpet in it and peeling off. They're nice. And so some of it is just, people getting over that and accessing it, but really more it's the operationalizing it and the financial component that we got a few insurance companies to band together here, and some dentists to go out there. I think, we could really do some great things out there.
Hey, Mr. Michael, whenever you want to do it, sign me up. I'm all game.
I'm ready. Let's do it.
I'm down to do mobile dentistry. Don't mind it at all.
Well, I'm going to call you right after the podcast.
Hey, man, I'm all for it. I always have this conversation, and this is like all the joke to the side. That's really one of my other passion, is to like, how can we come up with ways? And I think I talked to Craig about this even. We talked about going to other countries and like doing some dental work. I said, why not do it here? Why not going to this? I have the ability and the blessing of having a dental license. I really want to think about doing something like that, because I think it's so important that people should have access to the dental care that they need. Because truly, I see the patient when I'm in the chair. I had a patient recently, and that patient said, man, for so long, I lived in an area that I couldn't see the dentist. The guy had, like, his mouth, if I tell you, like, he had 22 teeth, and all of those single teeth in his mouth was like infected to a point of no return. I extracted his teeth, and he came back to me last week, and he said, Doc, thank you for taking my teeth out, because now I can actually, like, my taste of food has changed. The way I live my life has changed. It's so, I get so emotional when I hear those things, because I'm like, man, like, you live in the greatest country on planet Earth, and now you don't even have an access to simple dental care. Like, That really blows my mind. And I'm truly like, I really want to do something because I think it's so important to be able to provide those patients that don't have access to be able to. So, hey, Mr. Michael, I'm game. Let me know. Every 6 months, sign me up.
Story. That's really great that you did that. And I think there are a number of dentists out there that do that and they donate their time and they go to these free clinics. We need more of that. And I think I'm glad to hear you say that. We'll sign you up. We'll get you out there.
Sign me up, man. I'm all game.
You guys can start with me. I've never been to a dentist before. I could never
Come
afford
on.
it.
But you live in Canada now, so now you're in.
I'm not a Canadian citizen here technically. So yeah, I can be your
Technicality
test
there.
case.
Yeah.
Michael, before we wrap it up, I just had one more question. One last question
Sure.
I had. Basically, you're familiar with how the dental industry is progressing towards AI, and there are different tools coming in different cases, helping the dentist, helping the receptionist, the front staff in all the different areas. There are great tools being built in every part. And I don't think it's going to replace any of the staff. It's probably just going to complement their job and then, help them focus on the more high priority works. Um, besides this, I work on a specific field in AI in dentistry, which I built a software which is an AI receptionist. It picks up the phone, it talks to patients, books appointments, like it's connected to the PMS and do those sorts of things. And back when I started it, it was something very silent. There was not a lot of companies around. It was probably a few companies. Right now, it's becoming something very big. And, people are progressing towards that way. The industry has a very positive mindset towards it. It's not the best tools right now because there's a lot of work that needs to be done on them before they are completely ready to, take on that job. But one area that they are looking at with the voice AI and these AI receptionists is basically insurance verifications and claims. Do you think that could ever happen? Because, I've been talking to a bunch of our partners and, the dentists that we work with, and majority of them believe that with insurance companies, even when humans are on the phone, they usually like to just say no and decline it, let alone them talking to a bot. And the bots be like, yeah, I had this patient on. His name is Milad Owji. Would you please accept his claim?
Yeah.
So do you see a future in that?
I do, and I've seen a little bit of what you're working on. It's really exciting, and I'm
Thanks, man.
excited to see. I'm excited to see where you end up with it because I think it's going to be great. I do see a future in that. I think, like any other field, there's like a big opportunity there. I think there are a number of things that can be handled with AI that a nice AI that won't just turn down Dr. Oji when he needs his filling without even considering him. Yeah, I mean, I think we're getting there. I know one of the companies I worked with has been trying to, had tried to put a chat function in, human chat, not AI, just like someone sitting at the computer for a good 5 years. It was just not, they couldn't get it to that point. So I think we've seen an explosion in AI over the last, call it's been more than a year, but really becoming mainstream in the last year, right? I think you have to employ that. It makes you faster. It makes you smarter. That allows people the person that would normally be doing that to work on more complex cases and have that conversation with Dr. Oji and go and dive into the details. And you can handle a lot of the more basic stuff through that. So I hope we get there. I don't hear a lot about people being afraid of losing their job because of that. I think you just shift the human responsibilities to other more human touch type things. When you look at, I know you didn't ask me this, but when you look at a dentist office itself, I think one of the most important things for me as a patient going in is like the front desk staff. If they're warm and welcoming and nice, like it just sort of puts you at ease going into your appointment. So I hope your company is successful, but I hope you don't replace the front desk person with a robot or something there, or a computer screen. Because me personally, I need that human touch there. But no, I think we're gonna get there. I think it would be this industry, even though it's 10 years behind, it's still coming. Maybe AI won't be 10 years behind. It'll just be a year.
Well, Mr. Michael, thank you so much for hopping on. I know you're in Rhode Island. You're like about an hour ahead of us. I truly appreciate you hopping on, man. I always when Craig when Craig connected us and we kind of start talking, man, your personality just shine through the screen, and you have such an amazing personality. And, every time we have a conversation is a joy for me. I learn so much from you. I hope that we do something together because I think that you have so much power in this industry and so much knowledge. So we hope that we can do something together, and I'm sure we can.
Well, I truly, from my heart, appreciate that, and the feeling is mutual. And I'm honored that you guys invited me on here. It's late, but it's been a lot of fun, and I'm energized being on here with you guys. So thanks so much. I really look forward to keep talking with you guys.
Yeah, Mr.
And
Michael,
one
keep in
last
touch
thing.
with us.
Yeah.
One last thing I just wanted
Yeah,
to
sure.
say. I don't know, Milad, if you noticed, but usually me and Milad try to be the funniest ones in the podcast. But I think this time Milad really tried good, but I think you were the funniest one, Michael.
Oh man, no, I can't steal that though. You're on a podcast again. Be serious, guys. Yeah.
I would crack a few jokes here and there, and Michael will come wipe me out.
Yeah.
You guys are great.
Yeah, Michael, man. Good luck in Rhode Island. Enjoy it.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
All right,
I'll see you, Mr. Mike. Keep in touch.
I
Yeah.
will. Take
Have a
care,
great
guys.
night.
Have a good night.
You too.
Bye.
Bye bye.